A to the Kania, running wild, and here we are with our first A to the Kania segment. We're going to be talking about the 10 greatest WrestleMania moments ever. 10 of them. 10 of them. So, maybe controversial, what list isn't? So, let's, dive right in. But before we do, if you think we are full of shit, or, it's not lived up to your expectations, or you're shocked, flabbergasted, let us know. Tell us. That's why we do these lists.
Proper way for it. Go fuck yourself.
Well, that too. But yeah, this is what we think.
2 words for you.
Exactly. Sorry. This is what we think. This is our greatest moments, not yours. But yeah, let us know. Have we missed something out?
We're doing 10, right? There's going to be some you agree with, yes. There's going to be some you don't. So, get off our backs.
Yeah, right. Fucking hell. No, please stay. Watch this. Listen to this, please. We love you.
Yes, we love you guys.
But kicking us off, Anthony, with WrestleMania moment number 10. What have you got for us?
I got number 10 is for me, and this is somewhat of a personal one. That sounded weird. Like I was there. No, I wasn't. This is a personal preference for me because it sticks in my mind. Now, this is one that I don't see on a lot of lists, and some people might come at me and be like, "Well, you don't read a lot of lists, then, do you, dickhead?" But that's a bit rude, and I don't want you to say that. But
everyone knows Anthony
10,
can't read.
Number 10,
not nice.
Carl, I'll stop ranting. Number 10 is WrestleMania 20, and it's the return of the Dead Man. Now, this was. It's a particularly one that stuck in my mind because most of my wrestling most of everyone's wrestling teen years who are our generation, but most of my wrestling memories of Undertaker were the American Badass, or whatever he called himself when he had that other cool music. But it was Big Evil. Did he go with Big Evil for a while?
He was Big Evil. He was
Bugger Red.
And you're gonna pay. You're gonna pay.
Anyway, so this was a storyline they built up, and they built it up beautifully, and it always sticks in my mind. Where obviously we had Kane sort of still being the monster Kane. He was maskless at this point, so he, not quite the same Kane, but whatever. And he took umbrage to the fact that Undertaker has changed and he's not the monster he once was. And I can't remember the pay-per-view that it was, but we obviously got to that point in that feud where they had a buried alive match, and he successfully buried the Undertaker alive.
Mm-hmm.
And what did this result in? Resulted in Kane being haunted for weeks, Carl, by the urn, by Paul Bearer, by various ominous gong sounds, all that cool Undertaker stuff. And what did we get? We build right up to Mania, to an absolutely amazing moment where we get to see the original, the Dead Man return. It's the right music, the whole thing, the Druids, the lot. It was fucking brilliant. And that is definitely got to be on a list when you're doing a top 10 Mania moments, because fucking awesome it was.
Fucking brilliant it was, Anthony. You're right. It's mad, really, because obviously I started watching earlier, so like 92, I think, is when I can officially say I started watching it. So I was like, 4? And, I remember Undertaker like debuting and kind of being that Dead Man and watching him kind of evolve into the American Badass and kind of having that nostalgia of, I missed the Dead Man. And to have him come back with that music and, the Druids, as you've said, and have that entrance again on such a fucking grand scale at WrestleMania 20 was just so epic.
It's the best way to bring him back, wasn't it?
Yeah, and to think, we got... Because it was such a... for him to transform himself from the Dead Man to the American Badass and still be as over as a character, that like hardly ever happens. To be able to transition yourself back to the star that made you in the first place and still be able to do it.
Break that character significantly. You talk and everything now, and you're clearly not a Dead Man. How did he manage to seamlessly jump back into that? And we're all totally on board with it.
Yeah, fucking just because it was brilliant. It was an amazing WrestleMania moment. Walking through them Druids, the fire, and he was back, and it was just, it was beautiful. Fucking beautiful.
Indeed. So that's number 10. That was number 10.
All right, Buckety. So the next one I've got for you is I'll copy what you did. Number 9.
Where is he?
So another return. This time, the return of the Hardy Boys. So WrestleMania 33, we had our hosts being none other than the New Day, and they'd been making themselves I guess busy all night, getting involved in various things, and then at the start of a triple threat tag team match, they come out onto the stage. They've since changed into their wrestling gear, and they're like, "Well, we've got an announcement. This tag team match has now been, changed into a fatal four-way." And everyone's like, "Oh, it's going to be them."
Here we go.
And they even set it up, and they're like, "Whoo, whoo," just the way the New Day do. Kofi Kingston even takes a couple of steps forward, and then out of nowhere, Team Extreme, the Hardy Boy music kicks in, and the audience goes apeshit. And I think everybody watching it just went apeshit because it's the fucking Hardys, and they hadn't been in WWE in so long, and they were back. And I think even more so for me, seeing that Matt Hardy was still like the broken Matt Hardy, and he looked eccentric as fuck, and they didn't just bring him back and completely forget that character. So I was like, "Ooh, are we gonna how's this gonna work?"
Turns out he was woken though, wasn't he? Not broken. So.
Yeah, well, yeah, copyright infringement made him woken.
Whoops.
He was woken to copyright infringement. But no, it was just amazing to see that the fan reaction to that, and obviously just how expertly it was executed with the big long pause, with Kofi taking the step.
That's the key one. I think it was executed beautifully, and this may be a thing that was just me. I'm sure there were people on the internet who saw it coming, but like I hadn't heard any echoes of them coming back or anything. So this got me good.
Yeah, same. Like normally, it's very rare that happens. Like with AJ at the Rumble, with these guys at WrestleMania, it's very rare where you're not like, oh well, I know so and so's a free agent now and they could pop up, but these guys were just. I think they'd worked a Ring of Honor show the night before or something, and it was just like, oh right, okay, and then the next minute, boom, in the WrestleMania, they win the tag team titles in this match as well. So all round epic moment, and the Hardy Boys were back, and we all fanboyed out. We know you did too, and it was a fun time had by all. So that is why it makes our number 9, because it was fucking cool and it was a swerve, and that's what we like about WrestleMania.
Indeed. So my next one, Carl,
number 8,
is I'm gonna have to take you back to WrestleMania 20. I'm afraid.
Okay.
The mania that keeps on giving, and this one sadly has like a bit of a cloud over it, I suppose now. But you can't deny how much of a moment this was, and this was, I think you've eloquently put it in the notes, the best friends to find the odds, and this is both Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit reaching the top of that mountain, both in the same night, becoming the WWE and World Champions respectively, and that embrace between the two of them at the end, and you couldn't get more of an emotional sort of payoff, and they'd worked their asses off for it, and to be honest, most of like our Attitude Era years we're watching these guys build up from where they were to this point. And it was just fantastic, and I do think in all fairness this goes in a lot of people's best Mania moments, but obviously given the tragedies for both, and obviously WWE distanced themselves massively from any mention of Benoit, it doesn't get a lot of attention by WWE in terms of replays and so on like that when they talk the Mania moments, but you can't deny how amazing a moment this was for the pair of them and for us as an audience.
Yeah, it was just so emotional, wasn't it? If you think back, these guys came up together. They wrestled out in Mexico, in Japan, ended up in WCW, and you had the whole Kevin Nash calling them vanilla midgets, and they were never going to be anything. They were just cruiserweights, and they would never amount to anything. Especially like world champions, for them then to make their way to WWE as part of the Radicals and go through that whole thing of IC championships and work their way up to just them two, the guys who were told they would never make it, they were too small for this business. They're not, especially in a company like WWE who put even more emphasis on the bigger muscle bound stars.
Do you know what's crazy? And I don't know if it's true, but I read somewhere that Eddie Guerrero was the same height as Chad Gable.
He was short. I think he was about 5'6". Yeah, he was.
I don't remember him being short. If that makes any sense. Like they really emphasised that Chad Gable's a little guy. Obviously, he was short as G for ages. And to be fair, he doesn't look tall next to the other guys. I don't know what it is about Eddie, but I never remember him being a short guy. But apparently he's not I don't know if it's true or not because it's just something I read on social media somewhere. But apparently he was on height with the guy. It's crazy. Crazy.
No, he was definitely. I mean, Benoit was as well. I think Benoit was like 5'9", something like that, and Eddie was like 5'7", 5'8".
I kind of knew Benoit was. Do you know what I mean? I think, especially because the nickname kind of emphasised that, didn't it? The Rabid Wolverine. It's like, Wolverines are small typically, so that kind of made sense. And I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. It's just something about the way Eddie carried himself. I just never really thought about it until later years. Like, actually, Eddie wasn't a big guy.
No,
because Kevin Nash. Let's be honest, Kevin Nash can call most people little.
This is true. I think, to be fair, that that was a lot of what they tried to do, was to bulk out and put on the mass and make their height less of a factor, because they still looked like big guys and that they could compete and stuff. Like, I remember when Guerrero first came in, he was definitely nowhere near as he spent so much time in the gym to kind of build himself up to that level.
Like, at this Mania point, they were both, like, their physique was like at its fucking peak, wasn't it? Really, let's be honest.
Yeah, well, that's it. They'd worked their whole lives for this, and to be told that they'd never make it, that's why it was such a special moment for these two ex-WCW guys who went through everything, through Japan, through Mexico, through this crazy journey to get to the top of the mountain in the biggest wrestling company in the world that historically does not give these guys opportunities to win their main titles. So for the fact that both of them had it and they were both like best friends, and that crowning moment, it was beautiful. And as you said, it's a shame that obviously with events that have happened since this, that it's now not looked on as favorably as it was, because it was so emotional at the time for the pair of them, and they're still going to go down as excellent wrestlers and legends. So
indeed,
great WrestleMania moment. And the next one, Anthony, we move on to number 7, which is, of course, shocking for everyone who grew up watching Stone Cold Steve Austin take on Vince McMahon at WrestleMania 17 in the rematch between Stone Cold and The Rock. Austin declared before this match he would do whatever it takes to win. Little did we know what that meant was he would make a deal with the devil himself, Vince McMahon, as Austin turned heel, as Vince helped Austin beat The Rock and win the WWE Championship. Now, my head fell off when I saw this. I never thought I would see the day where...
This is the thing, both a character and a story executed so well, because he was the ultimate anti-authority guy. Mm-hmm. That was him to a T, and he sold that so well as a character that I can totally get. Like, I sadly for me, I was more of this was a big moment guy. I didn't see it at the time, so I can only imagine, but I can totally get why you were like, holy shit, when this happened. I really can.
Yeah, it was just so shocking. It was an image, a visual that you never thought you would see. Just Austin and Vince shaking hands in the middle of the ring, smirking at each other. And I think I can't remember whether it was JR or whoever it was in commentary, just saying Austin's made a deal with the devil. It's exactly what he'd done, and it was just so, as you said, so beautifully written as a story to have that transpire in a way that you didn't just go, oh, that would never happen. You were actually like, oh shit, like, I can't believe this has happened, but it was still believable, if that makes sense. And obviously that kick-started a completely different period of Stone Cold's kind of career trajectory, because he had never really been the bad guy as such, especially in a long time since Austin 316 kicked off. So it was going to see him as the baddie aligned with Vince. So it was a crazy way to end what is arguably one of the best WrestleManias ever, which we will obviously let the fans decide this for us ahead of our WrestleMania Rewind.
A bold statement, Carl. A bold statement.
WrestleMania 17 has to be up there, and this is part and parcel of why I think that, because it was just such a shocking moment. But yeah, that was our number 7.
Crazy. Well, coming in at
number 6
is WrestleMania 30, Carl. Let's take you to WrestleMania 30. And I think everybody knows what I'm going to say at this point, and this is Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan finally getting his dues paid and winning the top title. I'm saying top title because I can't remember what fucking title it was at the time, because
it was
keep
both.
changing the fucking things.
It was both, I think. It was.
Had we not unified them at this point? I keep losing track.
I think this was this was ahead of us unifying them. I think I'm not sure whether it was because
my head went, well, we didn't have the Universal one then, but like you're right because we had the World and WWE one at that point.
Yeah. So obviously at the start of the night he had to face Triple H, didn't he, to even be entered into that main event? And I'm not sure whether I think it was Orton and Batista, wasn't it? Maybe two guys are in the main event.
Batista won the Rumble and pissed everyone off that way, didn't he? So it was Orton and Batista for the main event.
Yeah. So I'm not. I was just trying to think. Was it so? Did Orton hold both of them in the first place, or did one have one and one have the other? I can't remember
because I don't remember them being separate.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was just before they merged them. I think it was just treated as two titles.
Well, let's be honest, guys. There's only one like undisputed champion and one unified title, and that was when Jericho fucking did it. Every other time it's just you guys fucking around. But anyway, sorry, that's slight digression. But I think this is interesting as well because this goes down as like one of the best Mania moments, and it's memorable as fuck, right? What I find so interesting is that this was clearly a course correction.
Mm-hmm.
This was not the plan. I don't care what anyone says. It was never worked. They never built this up as he's total underdog and he didn't win the Rumble and he definitely planned on that happening and definitely planned on the audience getting behind it. They didn't. They planned on Batista coming back, Batista being a big fucking draw, and the crowd would just go with what they say, as they typically do. Mm-hmm. And the crowd went fucking ballistic about it because they didn't want him to be the champ at that time. So for me, and people might still suggest it's a work, I don't believe it was. But I think that's fantastic that you can turn a course correction into a fucking ultimately amazingly memorable moment because it made the victory so much sweeter and it wasn't even intentional.
No, like the fans inserted Daniel Bryan into that main event. Like none of this would have happened without them. You could see from the Rumble how pissed off they were with everything that transpired, and then to see him finally. Obviously, to beat Triple H, they were made up, and then to see him finally get that win, that crowd just erupted, and like everybody, every single person was doing that yes chant, and it was just incredible.
Yeah, how electrifying was that bit when and everyone's yes chanting when he's won it. It's like that must have, like, imagine being in that crowd at that time, man.
I don't think as well. Like I know we've just had the whole Memoir and Eddie kind of moment, but I don't think there's ever been a moment as big as Daniel Bryan's where everybody in the audience was behind somebody. Like even like when Cena had all these fans and stuff, there was loads of people booing. When Roman's had all these fans, loads of people booing.
Yeah, it's so rare. It's so rare.
Yeah, like if you look around, I don't think you'll see one person who just wasn't made up for him. And it's because he truly deserved it. And I think you're right. This was never the master plan. This was a complete course correction to the point where, obviously the fans were made up because they made it happen. And, going on that ride with him and seeing him win them belts, and actually, not be the B+ player anymore and be that main event guy and top of the mountain at WrestleMania after all them years.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, the crazy thing is, and I love Miz, but if you think about how he got into WWE, Daniel Bryan, and he was on NXT before it was, the NXT we know today, and his mentor was The Miz. And,
The Miz, who come from what was that reality show that he came from?
Real World.
The Real World. Yeah. And like had less wrestling chops than the guy.
Exactly.
And don't be wrong, The Miz has proved that he's a fucking absolute. He learned everything he could possibly learn, and he's a fucking legit wrestler. But like at that point, that's kind of insulting. All due respect to The Miz, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So
we only used it as storylines after that, so it kind of worked.
Well, yeah, but like what a journey he took to get to WWE in the first place, and then to when he was even in there, he was overlooked, and to overcome all them odds and win the belt at WrestleMania was incredible.
And yet CM Punk seems to think that he's vilified and hated, but whatever.
Yeah. So the next one, Anthony, number 5. We have, and I don't know whether this will hit you as hard as it hit me.
No, it hit, I'll be honest, it hit me. It did hit me.
So number 5 is when Shawn Michaels finally retired Ric Flair. Now, little footnote to this: he didn't stay retired, did he? If he did, it would have been beautiful. But this doesn't take away from the moment, because at the time we thought it was for real. But
And it was probably at the moment.
but
I think even Rick believed it when it happened. Sorry.
like still to this day, whenever I watch this match, and right, it's crazy because I've gone on record with this before. I don't really like Shawn Michaels. I think he's a dick, right? And that stems from what he did.
Dick, but he's still a dick.
That stems from what he did to Brett and how he was and everything backstage. But right, anyway, I've never really been a big fan of Shawn, but I'm a huge fan of Ric Flair. And while I agree Shawn is super talented and he's Mr. WrestleMania, I've always been a bit like meh, but he was so the right guy for this and to make it work and stuff. And they had such a lengthy career together. Obviously, Flair had some years on Shawn, but the fact that it was these two, they put on a fantastic match, and it's just that very end bit where you can see Ric Flair start to just break down. You can see that he's getting upset. He's got tears in his eyes. And then, obviously, when Shawn Michaels is in the corner and he mouths to him, I love you, and then Sweet Chin Music to the face, and you can just see when Ric Flair hits the mat, he's just crying, and he's crying his eyes out, and watching it, I just remember just tearing up as well, just seeing that, and then he gets pinned, he's retired, and just the way Shawn just kind of hugs him on the floor afterwards while Ric Flair's crying, so emotional, man. It's such a two legends, two icons.
Cries quite a lot now.
Yeah,
probably at this point it was very fucking emotional.
We hadn't really seen him cry that much before, but
No.
yeah, so it's just, I don't know, such a beautiful thing, and obviously, unfortunately, he didn't stay retired and that kind of thing, so maybe that kind of cheapens it a little bit, but you can never take away what a raw, moment this was for two legends of the business, like what it must have meant to the likes of Shawn to be able to retire Rick, and then obviously what it must have meant to Rick for the career he's had, and, having to come to terms with the fact that he's not going to be Ric Flair, the wrestler anymore, and you can just see what a toll it took. But great match and great story, great finish, and so emotional.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Fantastic match. It's weird actually because I'm not a big fan of Shawn, but at the same time, he's had some amazing matches and some amazing. Like he definitely deserves the name Mr. WrestleMania. Both matches he had with the Undertaker were fantastic. They're not going to be on this list because we're talking moments rather than matches. Yeah. But
I can definitely see them.
Is absolutely amazing. Like, honest to God, he's put on some amazing matches. You can't deny the guy is talented. But like you say, there's questionable antics over the years.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll definitely see some of his matches feature on the greatest matches episode that we do.
Knock, can you? To be fair, he has had some amazing manias.
Absolutely.
Speaking of amazing manias, Cal, here we come with
number 4.
And that is, as you've titled it, which I like, the heist of the century, Carl. And I think a lot of people know what this one is. This is WrestleMania 31, and this is Seth Rollins turning face and saving the whole fucking WWE at this point because none of us were fucking happy, and cashing in the Money in the Bank to take the title from Roman. It was Roman who just won it, and no one was, because we told them, we fucking made it very clear as an audience we weren't going to be happy with this, and they wouldn't fucking listen. But again, another fantastic example of a course correction that ended up becoming a legendary, memorable moment, because I do not believe for 1 second they planned on having Seth do this until they saw the audience go, yeah, not happy.
Do you know, it's crazy, like, thinking back to this, because the fans shat on Roman so hard during this. Like, they would
to the point that, like, if I weren't there with them at the time, so annoyed by it, I would have felt bad.
Yeah, it was.
As a person, he doesn't really deserve it, but it was just the way they'd booked the whole fucking thing, and nobody wanted it, and we kept telling them we didn't fucking want it.
And then we still ended up getting it a fucking year later, didn't we? Or whenever it was. And then we saw how that happened. Yeah, was it a year later, a couple of years later? I can't remember.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
We all know how that happened when Brock went through the curtain and fucking chucked the belt to Vince McMahon's head. So we know that the fans weren't happy then either. But watching this one back and just hearing the fans shit on Roman and just thinking, oh my God, like, this is going to be so bad when Roman wins. And then, because obviously earlier in the night, Seth Rollins took on Randy Orton. And that was a fantastic match as well. I still remember that curb stomp into RKO. Fucking thing of beauty. That in itself could have been a
I
moment
think
on here because it was
you've
so
put
good.
that clip up before, haven't you, on our socials?
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
But obviously, he fought earlier in the night, and I don't think anybody expected him to cash in during the match, if at all. Like, I completely forgot about Money in the Bank at this point. I was just like,
I think that's the best Money in the Bank.
yeah.
You know, when somebody really credible has got it,
Mm-hmm.
and he can use it so effectively like this, it makes it so much better. Like, look at the other memorable Money in the Banks to be like the Edge and stuff like that. Like, they haven't been able to do that in a while, as far as I'm concerned, with the Money in the Bank, which is a real shame. But this is a perfect execution because, like you say, you kind of forgot about it because he just had it. He didn't make a big fucking deal. It weren't a gimmick. He just had it. And then when he cashes in, you're like, oh shit, yeah. And like that's the perfect way to do it.
And I think it becomes so formulaic by this point that if there was going to be a cash in, it'd be after the match. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, no one ever.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point because that's typically how it works. Yeah.
Yeah, and I recall it was at that point where I think Roman finally just had Brock beat. I think he hit him with like 4 or 5 Superman punches or something, but then he didn't go for the pin, and he was like just lying there. Or it might have been he hadn't beaten, then Brock got him with the F5. I can't really remember what happened, but they were both lying there.
They both kind of downed each other, didn't they? Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like no one's making the pin, and then just hearing that music, and everyone just went, "Oh shit!" and just seeing him leg it down, like he fucking paced it down that ramp. I think it was quite a lengthy ramp as well.
Super long ramp as well.
Yeah. Fucking pegged it down there, and yeah, just cashed in. And then even then, it was a couple of swerves, like, "Oh no, he's not going to get it," and then just to see him win, and it was genius, really, because whether it was called on the fly, like you think it was, or whether they made that call earlier.
I think it was. Definitely fucking was.
I mean, it's who knows? Who knows? It would make sense if it was because of how much they shat on it, but I just think it was such the right decision to make anyway, whether it was planned or not, because no one was going home happy, but then everyone went home fucking deliriously ecstatic with what had happened. It was so good.
Yeah, what a finish.
So fucking good. So, the next one. Number 3. We're going to talk about probably the first great WrestleMania moment. So, obviously,
I think that's fair.
WrestleMania 3. And this isn't taking anything away from the first WrestleMania or WrestleMania 2. But when we're talking about iconic WrestleMania moments, you've got to always come back to WrestleMania 3. And this was... Because in WrestleMania 1, you had... Hogan teaming up with Mr. T to take on Piper and Orndorff. WrestleMania 2, I think it was Hogan and Bundy, but you had all these other things going on as well. This was like Hogan's biggest test. It was Hulk Hogan against Andre the Giant, and it was the unmovable force, or what was it? The unstoppable force against the unmovable object, whatever the fuck it is. I don't really know.
Something like that.
Yeah, so that sounds right. But you looked, Hogan was completely dwarfed by him. It was all the way through the match he struggled. He couldn't take him down. He tried to power slam him a couple of times and just couldn't lift him up. He was hurting his back. All this good stuff. And then, as Hogan does, and Hogan is synonymous with WrestleMania. He has made WrestleMania, to be fair, on a number of occasions. He's also been terrible in a few occasions too.
Let's be honest, he's helped to establish it, hasn't he, really?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it wouldn't be what it is without his early years. As much as, again, I've never really expressed being a big fan of Hogan, you can't deny his contribution.
Yeah. And this moment was just... It's iconic, and I think it's what got a lot of the wrestlers and love today. I know Triple H, for example, saw this moment, and that was when he was like, I want to be a wrestler, because it was just so... It was David and Goliath-esque, even though Hogan's fucking huge. It was him being able to pick up and slam Andre the Giant, and they made such a big deal out of it as well to the uneducated fan of like, Andre's never been picked up before, he's never been slammed. Fucking about 10 people had done this by this point in Japan and all these other places, but
again, they marketed it and sold it to us, so we fucking believed it.
Yeah, and that, as if Hogan wasn't a massive star already, that was like, oh my god, he's just slammed Andre the Giant, and it was just that moment where you can look at the fans and they're just in disbelief at what they've seen, and then obviously Hogan ends up getting the win, and it was just, I don't know, you can't think about WrestleManias without just how symbolic that was.
I think that's the nail on the head. I don't think anyone could do a list like this and this not be on it. That's how iconic this is.
Yeah,
I came into wrestling way later than this, so I wasn't watching it like at the time. But everyone goes back to this moment. I've seen this moment a few dozen times because of that. Do you know what I mean? And you can't deny how iconic this is.
Yeah,
You
for
just
me,
can't.
it is the first big WrestleMania moment, and it's synonymous with WrestleMania. Just that, just the visual of him picking up Andre the Giant and slamming him. It was just like that was when people's heads just exploded of what they've just seen.
And you guys lost your mind when Cesaro picked up Otis. This is like 10 times better than that.
exactly. So yeah, rite of passage has to be on there on the WrestleMania moments list because
It can't not
of
be,
everything it did. So excellent WrestleMania moment.
So, speaking of ones that have to be on the list, Carl, I'm going to hit you with
Number 2.
Please don't.
Sorry. No, and this is, and I will need your help a little bit because this is slightly before my time, but I think it hits that exact point of this can't, it's so iconic it can't not be listed. And this is the infamous double 10 from WrestleMania 13,
So
Austin
good.
versus Bret Hart, with Austin refusing to give in to the what was the finisher?
Sharpshooter. Yeah, sharpshooter.
I doubted myself. Sorry. It wouldn't give in to the sharpshooter and passing out in a pool of his own blood. And how can you not go back to this moment so many times? This is one of them things. Like, I think it's consistently on like WWE's openers and vignettes all the time. Just Austin's face writhing in pain, covered in blood. Like, that's how iconic this moment is to them. It's such an ingrained sort of memory for all wrestling fans, and again, slightly before my time, so I didn't even get the hype build up before it, even though I've seen the match. So you might be able to contribute a bit more on that, Carl. But it's just, again, always associated with WrestleMania. How could it not be?
It was fucking amazing, right? People like. There's a common misconception with Stone Cold. People think after he won King of the Ring and he did that promo of Austin 316 that he became a fucking superstar overnight. He didn't. He honestly really didn't at all. It wasn't until this moment. So he won the King of the Ring in '96. King of the Ring's normally in June, right? So WrestleMania is like April time. So he was getting over, of course he was. But this was the moment that made Stone Cold Steve Austin, and it was fucking so epically brilliantly done. Going into this match, Bret Hart was the babyface, Stone Cold was the heel, and they were such great foils for each other on the microphone, in the ring, the styles, everything about it was so good. And what the story they told, the way they did this, was obviously Austin was the bad guy who was people were starting to still like him because of his charisma on the mic and stuff like that, and he was starting to get over. And Bret was kind of becoming a bit like, oh, well, Bret's the good guy. He's like almost Hogan-esque is the point where, like, okay, he's Bret Hart, everyone loves him, but, we're getting a bit sick of that now. The way they pulled this off to have Austin just not quit and Bret to put him through everything, they did the little blade job, which they shouldn't have done at the time. Advertisers were breathing down Vince's neck saying too much blood, stuff like this, he can't do it. Did a lot of blood. Yeah, a little sneaky blade job, and then look at this fucking visual. Do you know what I mean? Writhing in pain, in the sharpshooter, and he doesn't tap out. It's an I Quit match, as well. I must point out, and I think Ken Shamrock was the special guest referee, and so that added some legitimacy to it anyway. A former UFC fucking champ, but
a known badass.
Yeah, an I Quit match. They're there, and then Austin doesn't quit. He passes out due to the blood loss and the pain. Straight away, you've just made a badass because he won't even give up. So that alone,
still never said it to this day. He's not said I quit.
But then after the match, Bret Hart starts to he gets pissed off basically and starts to lay into his leg even further with a steel chair. Then obviously Shamrock gets involved and stuff, and they basically masterfully execute this double turn where Austin goes into the match a heel and ends up coming out of it the babyface because of everything he went through, everything they left in the ring, how much determination and grit he showed, and then you've got them turning Bret at the end of it as well, and it was just so fucking well done. It was just amazing, so good, and it wasn't even the main event.
To point out how rare and difficult it is to do a double turn. It's very seldom seen and very seldom well executed. In all fairness, as well.
Absolutely, and I don't think there's ever been a double turn executed as well as this, and one that has just absolutely catapulted somebody into superstardom, really, because it, like, that's what I mean. Everyone just thinks that they think of Austin and him being a superstar, and like, oh, he won King of the Ring, he did Austin 316, and they just forget them like the months after that. It was only after this where everyone was like, fucking hell, that dude is a badass, and that was his character, him being a badass, and you know what I mean? Him beating Jake Roberts at King of the Ring didn't get him the moniker of being a badass. What got him? It was
no. I think people
this.
people just they remember that quote, don't they? That's where Austin 316 was born, and they remember that badass sort of quote after he won. But like you say, there was much more build beyond that. But I think it's just everyone always goes back to that whole, oh, Austin 316 says, I just whooped your ass, because we love it. It's a fucking brilliant quote.
We do. But yeah, so good, so fucking good. One of my favorite matches of all time, just so good. But it is not the greatest WrestleMania moment of all time, because if I had a drum,
polarizer one, Carl, hit us with
number one. It is none other than The Undertaker's streak is broken. Brock Lesnar becomes the 1 in 21-1. And
like a year.
Yeah, well, yeah, fucking hell. I still can't believe they had Roman beat. Anyway, let's not go down there. This, you will seldom see a more shocking, crazy moment in anything ever, let alone a WrestleMania.
I remember. I think we watched this one together, didn't we? Actually, this is when we started watching the Manias together.
I think we did.
Yeah, so we were there, glass of whiskey in hand, expecting Undertaker to win, as you do. And as much as the streak had to be broken at some time, I genuinely did not believe for 1 second that it would be Lesnar. I did not.
Do you know what?
Never thought it would happen.
It is crazy, right? I look back at this, and the build up to it just never made me, because it was just so rushed and just kind of fell out of nowhere. It was kind of like, well, they're obviously, it's just they needed someone to fight Taker, so they're just going to put Brock in. It never felt like a threat, and it's crazy because it's Brock Lesnar. But just because they didn't build it up that way at all, you just thought, oh yeah, cool, Taker's fighting Brock. You never thought it was at risk.
Exactly, and I think that was probably a good execution in some senses. That was the shock, and I'll never forget Heyman's face, because even Heyman looked shocked, even though he was calling it and saying that this was going to happen. He looked fucking shocked when it did. But I still, to this day, don't know how I feel about this. That's how crazy a moment this is, because part of me never wanted a streak to end.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, who could have done it better? And I've always put a case that Shawn Michaels, because they both matches were fucking brilliant, that I would not have been upset if he'd have ended the streak on the second one. To that sort of build between the, he had to sort of come back at it. Do you know what I mean? And try again. I would not have been upset with that, but who could end the streak? Like, at least Brock he's legitimately a badass, and one of the, he's a beast. He's one of the, like, anytime he rocks up, people know that he's definitely gonna fucking wreck people and leave. Sorry, Roman. But yeah, for me, I'm like, I can't argue with the decision for it to be Brock, but I still don't know how I feel about it. It's a strange one. It's a really strange one.
It is so polarized, isn't it? I mean, firstly, like the point you made about Paul Heyman, he made this moment even more for me. The way he jumped in that ring with that, like, oh my god, like, you know what I mean? It was just the way he jumped in and was doing that. Everyone was just in disbelief. You look at the crowd, it goes deathly silent. Everyone is just.
You could hear a fucking pin drop. It was crazy.
It, like, I've never heard a WrestleMania crowd just go switched off 100%. Everyone was just like, and you've seen all them reactions of like all the audience. You know what I mean? Like, I remember watching like a director's cut or something that WWE released on their YouTube a while ago, and it showed even more reactions, and some of them were just like, you know what I mean? It's just insane, like how shocked people were by this, and it's hard, isn't it? Because on the one hand, you never want it to end. Then on another hand, you're like, well, if it's going to end, it should be to a young up and comer. But it's like, well, who would that be? Like, if it was Roman, I would have been pissed off. But you can't be pissed off with it being Brock.
You build legends up to that status, that it's so hard for an up and comer to take the win, because it is just going to piss people off.
Mm.
There'll be so many people who would have thought that he didn't earn it, right? And in a way, Brock was already, he wasn't a legend in terms of the same legend status as Taker. I'm not being disrespectful, but he was established enough that we knew he was fucking legitimately a fucking badass, and he'd had a good run in WWE the first time with a weird ending, and he's come back and he's sort of tearing through everyone. So it didn't feel like an odd thing to do. Like you say, the booking itself felt kind of rushed, but when you look at Brock and go, well, yeah, legitimately, yeah, that makes sense that he won. But didn't want it to make sense.
What's mad as well, because he didn't need this because he's fucking Brock Lesnar, but at the same time, it's not like they wasted it either, because they built this whole program off the fact that he was the fucking, eat sleep conquer repeat, the 1 in 21, and every time Heyman introduced him.
I'm almost kind of annoyed that Roman took that from him, because I
Mm.
loved the whole 1 in 21 and 1
Yeah,
was a fucking brilliant one. That was a brilliant line.
But it's
and
like
to be the only guy who ever beat him at Mania it's just such a fucking accolade anyway. And he got to hold that for, I don't want to be unfair and say 1. I think it might have been 2 years. In all fairness, I think he had a match between Bray the following year and won. So I think it was the year after Roman became the 2 in 23 and 2, which is just shit. Not the same.
It's not the same at all. But no, it's one of them, because obviously there was talk, wasn't there, of maybe they'll do it with Cena earlier on. That didn't happen. Maybe, I think Wade Barrett's name got thrown around, stuff like that. And really, if Wade's career would have gone the same, trajectory that it did, then he would have ended up leaving the company. You would have looked at that as a waste. Whereas with Brock, you bought it. It was completely believable because he's fucking Brock Lesnar. But they also didn't just go, oh well, okay, that's forgotten about. It that catapulted him for his him holding the belt for fucking 2 years basically, still underpinned by the fact that he beat the Undertaker at WrestleMania. So it was so well used, and people are like, well, he never needed it, and he didn't. But they didn't fucking honest, put it to good use.
In a way, I think you've made a good point that it almost. Not that it's justified, but when he held the belt for as long as he did, you kind of go, well, yeah, he's a tough motherfucker to beat, and we've proven that, because he's the only guy to beat the Undertaker. It almost legitimizes why he held the belt for so long. And literally half of it was not turning up week by week. That might have helped too.
Well,
but whatever.
But no, it's one of them, completely polarized, and some people will be like, I can't believe this is your number 1 on the list. Some people will have hated it, never thought it should have ended, but you cannot deny.
See, this is the thing, I don't know how I feel about it, but this is genuinely the most shocking Mania moment.
Yeah. And that's it. We're not even building a list of even shocking Mania moments or anything like that. These are the greatest Mania moments of all time, because whenever this is brought up, it elicits a reaction. There's some emotive reaction that you will have with it. You will either think it was fucking brilliant, you'll think it was the worst thing they ever did. You're gonna talk about it. You're gonna remember how you felt when it happened, and it was. Yeah. There's never been anything close.
There's no one sat there going, "He's okay."
Yeah,
either you fucking loved it or you hated it.
Exactly.
Let's be honest. And I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Carl. It invokes a response. You have that reaction, you that emotional investment one way or the other, whether you wanted it to happen or not. And I think that's a really good point.
Yeah,
and
100%.
I'm totally with you. I'm totally with that being number 1, Carl.
And that was it. That was our greatest 10 WrestleMania moments. So, what do you think of that list? Anyone who is listening, anyone who's watching, do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think we missed out some super important ones? Do you think the stuff on there that probably shouldn't have been on there? Let us know, because this is our list, and this is what we feel are the 10 greatest. But let us know in the comments on YouTube. Indeed. Or
because let's be honest, we like talking about wrestling, so it would be interesting to know some of your picks.
Well, that's it. We love having a bit of a debate anyway. So drop us a message on YouTube, on Instagram. Let us know. Did we miss off your favorite? Or
if we did, tell us. Not only your favorite, tell us why. Tell us what makes that your favorite. I'd love to know.
We would indeed. But
You know,
that
like I
was
sounded
it.
slightly sarcastic there. I'd love to know.
I'd love to know, and
what
so
the
that we can
conversation
tell
is.
you why you're wrong. But no, that was it. That was our first foray into A2theK, the 31-day long build up to the WrestleMania 37 pay-per-views.
Yeah.
So we hope you enjoyed this list. If you haven't done already, we have a pretty exciting giveaway for anyone who follows us on Instagram. You can win a WWE t-shirt of your choice from either WWE shop in the US or Canada or WWE Euroshop in Europe. So head on over there. We've got the rules on how you can enter and hopefully win yourself one of them t-shirts. So yeah, thank you all very much. We hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, tell us. If you did, tell us. And we'll be back next week with another A2theK moment. So we'll be back after this.
You're watching or listening
to A2theK.
The A2theK.
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 These guys are awesome. Check it out.
Check it out. Change your life. You'll be thanking me later.